The Canadian Agri-Food Policy Institute is driving bold policy solutions for a resilient Canadian agri-food system and building a stronger future for Canadian agriculture. Visit capi-icpa.com to discover how.
It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio. And welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Sean Haney, your host here on this Wednesday edition of the show. Thanks so much, everybody, for making RealAg Radio and Rural Radio 147 a big part of your workday. Today, we are broadcasting from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. We're at the CARE Convention, which is the Industry Association for Canadian Agri-Retailers. Retailers from across the country getting together to try to do some learning together and networking and all the things that you do at a convention. First time at this convention, and it is humming. It is a lot of fun, and these are the people that are really the connection to the grower and servicing the grower on a daily basis, trying to help them and assist them and partners with them to try to get the optimal yield possible. They're doing scouting. Obviously they're in sales from a product perspective. They're in consulting. They're trying to bring technology to the grower. They are a key cog in the wheel, and this is their national meeting. And I'm looking forward to being here because I'm actually one of the keynotes. I'm going to be speaking about some of the issues that are happening across the world of agriculture, Canada, and the U.S., and looking forward to some of the interaction with some really, really great retailers here in Saskatoon. And today's show is brought to you by CANTERRA Seeds. Go to CANTERRA.com, and I'm standing actually this was not planned, but I'm in the CANTERRA booth here. So they've got some banners set up here on the trade show floor. And I want to tell you about CS 4100LL. That's CANTERRA Seeds' new Liberty Link canola hybrid with pod shatter tolerance. Make sure you go to CANTERRA.com and find out more. Well, today on the show, we got a lot of ground to cover, and we're going to have a lot of fun here as we put this together. Justin Funk from AgriStudies will be with me. Now, he's our partners in RealAgristudies. Now, that is the market research arm of RealAgriculture. We're going to talk about some of the data and how the farmer's changing and evolving. There's concerns about some of the farm financial situation. Of course, you've heard me talk about that lots. We'll cover that, but we'll also cover how the farmer interacts with the retailer and what they need from the retailers and how that's evolving. And we'll talk about our farm vision study that we did this past spring and see if we'll try to pull some stuff out of Justin on that. We're also going to be joined by Duane Briand, who is with CANTERRA Seeds. He's going to talk about some of the excitement around the CS 4100LL. We've got Vance Crowe from Legacy Interviews joining us as well. Vance, longtime friend, does some fantastic work. He is one of the best communicators that I have ever worked with, and he is going to be providing an opening keynote here before the meeting starts in a few minutes. And we've also got Brent Derkatch. He is the CEO of CANTERRA, and he will be with us here today as well to talk about some of the stuff that CANTERRA's got going on, what's going on in the industry, and that and a whole lot more. So we are really going to rock it today in Saskatoon. It's snowing outside. It's winter. It's kind of happening. And I don't know if I'm excited about the whole snow thing, I'll be honest with you, but it is great to be in Saskatoon here in mid-November before we head off to the Colorado Farm Bureau meeting on Friday. Okay, if you have any feedback on today's program, you can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also call the RealAg feedback line or text it, 855-776-6147. And let me tell you, we've been getting so many texts. I got one this morning. I don't have it in front of me, but I got, I'll paraphrase for you, basically asking, you know what, I'm thinking about expanding my cow-calf operation. I'm a small producer. I would like more on the cattle industry. Even requested we do a beef market update every week. That sounds really, really exciting. I'll have to talk to Ann Wasco about that. But yes, so there's an example, some feedback. Want more cattle coverage. That's something we can definitely look at and take care of for sure. Encourage the texter or anybody else there that's interested to check out Ruminating with RealAg. It's a Real Agriculture podcast hosted by Amber Bell. She does a great job ruminating with RealAg. Okay, when we come back on RealAg Radio, we're going to talk to Justin Funk from RealAgristudies. You're listening to RealAg Radio, brought to you today by CANTERRA Seeds.
Soil health is under pressure, but real solutions start below the surface. Black Earth offers a full suite of humic solutions, from high-purity granules to powder, liquid, and soluble formulations, all powered by pure Humulite. Formulated for performance, backed by consistency, trusted by growers worldwide from one of the world's rarest reserves. Grow stronger with the power of Black Earth Humulite. Learn more from Mine to Market at blackearth.com.
It's now time for our product spotlight with CANTERRA Seeds, joined right now by Scott Peters, Territory Manager for Western Manitoba and Southeastern Saskatchewan. You've had a big year with your canola lineup, and CS 4100LL seems to be getting a lot of attention out there. What's been standing out about that hybrid?
I think guys needed to see it perform in the field this year. I got to see it in trials all last year, so I was super confident in the pod shatter genetics in it, but that was the big feedback I'm getting so far. It's exceeded expectations on the pod shatter, and on yield, that was the consistency that we needed to see this fall. It was really, really strong.
And how do you keep earning that trust year after year?
Sales nowadays isn't just a transaction anymore. You're not texting out pricing. If you want to build trust and repeat business, you got to be side by side with the growers, and a lot of the time you end up friends with them. There's a really good supply of the 4100. We did come out with a brand new 4200 as well, a little less supply on it, but the 4100, it's selling strong, but we got strong supply as well. You can go to CANTERRA.com. All the territory managers are on the website, all of our contact information, emails. You can also find a list of all the retailers that deal our products as well.
And welcome back to RealAg Radio, brought to you today by CANTERRA Seeds. I want to tell you about Brian Kester from Three Hills, Alberta. He's been growing CANTERRA hybrids since 2018, and he's very excited. He has also had in the field this new CS 4100LL CANTERRA Seeds new Liberty Link canola hybrid with pod shatter tolerance. Check it out at CANTERRA.com. We're going to hear more from CANTERRA coming up here. Even Brent Derkatch, the CEO of CANTERRA, will join us at the back end of the show. But joining us right now is Justin Funk of AgriStudies, our partners in RealAgristudies, the market research arm of RealAgriculture. Justin, is great to be actually in person, man.
I know. I don't think anybody's ever actually seen us in the same room together, so we're always on a screen, so this is awesome. I'm happy to be here.
So we are in front of some CANTERRA, Bennett. We are at the CARE Convention in Saskatoon, which is the industry association for agri-retailers across Canada. So we're in the right place here because a lot of the stuff that you and I both chat about, you know, what's on the minds of farmers, and we do this Canadian Farmer Sentiment Index every quarter. It's been really fascinating as we've seen kind of an overall continuing deterioration of farm financials across Canada.
Yeah, so, you know, we do this survey every quarter, and we ask questions the exact same way, trying to gauge how farmers are feeling about a number of things. And, you know, when you look at the numbers that we share, there's sort of this magic number, the 100 mark, which is the neutral line. So anything above that line is positive sentiment. Anything that falls below that line is negative sentiment. And so over the past little while, particularly when it comes to things like farm financial situation or outlook on the industry, the number has not just been below that 100 line, it's been significantly below, and it has been trending downwards.
Yeah, and I guess probably, you know, when we asked farmers in October, you know, what are you concerned about? It definitely became clear that, you know, it's the same things as kind of last year, but they've maybe even increased. Obviously, trade concern has really increased, but that's not causing the margin compression, I guess, directly. It's the stickiness of things like input prices.
Yeah, for sure. And we also asked the question about where are you looking to cut some cost, and to try to get a sense as to, you know, how farmers are approaching this. Is this a long-term fix, or is this a shorter-term fix? And it does seem that there's a lot more shorter-term measures that are being taken place, which I think is encouraging. So, you know, maybe there's some optimism that things are going to turn around here in a little bit, and we're not sacrificing the long-term for the short-term profitability.
Well, we know you have to be optimistic to be in this industry. Without question, there's so many variables and things being thrown people's way, but there is opportunity out there as well, as we've seen, you know, obviously a heightened level of optimism when it comes to the financial situation related to the livestock sector.
Yeah, for sure. Livestock farms are significantly more positive than crop farms. You know, we look at our data a number of different ways. You know, are you a primarily crop farmer, primarily livestock, or are you mixed farm? And if there's any indication there's livestock on the farm, that positivity number bumps up a little bit.
Yeah, one of the things that, and both of us are speaking here at the CARE Convention, which has been great for them to have both of us here at the same time. It's brought us together. One of the things that I'm going to show in some of my slides is so the current farm financial question is a relative one, you know, compared to, say, last year or 12 months ago. But one of the questions that we ask is, what is the state of your farm financial situation right now, 45% of Canadian farmers right now believe it's good to excellent. Now that doesn't sound, but what we're seeing from April to July to October is we're seeing a decline, which supports that current farm financial, that relative number, continuing to also slide.
Yeah, so it's about a 10-point difference from the last quarter that we asked the question. And it is a relatively new question, so we don't have like a lot of historical data on it, but it is an indicator, and I think it's something we need to be paying attention to.
I think it's really critical at this time when we are seeing a deterioration of some of the farm financials, that people don't get distracted by that cloud, that noise. They see the opportunities there too, because this is a time where there could be some farms that unfortunately are in financial trouble, but there could be an opportunity. If you're looking to grow, sometimes in bad times, that's the time to potentially look at some of those opportunities that are out there.
Yeah, in some of the other work we've done in our farm vision study from 2020, where we looked at where people are in their farm career, one of the things we observed is that larger farms were much more in a growth-minded mindset. And you look at our most recent data on the CFSI, when we asked that question about relative profitability, am I in a good or fair or excellent position? The larger farms have demonstrated a much more positive, I'm in a good or excellent position than the smaller farms.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people would kind of probably jump to that conclusion. It is. I hear back from audiences all the time, the why of that. Why is it the larger farms that feel that they're in that more growth mindset? Why do they feel that their financial situation is better, even compared to some of the medium-sized farms?
It's a tough question to ask and pinpoint to one reason in particular, but if I look back on some of the other research that you and I have done, we did a project a few years ago where we looked at skill development. And one of the things we observed there was related to learning and development and financial risk management, even things like human resource management, acumen, compared to farm financial situation, demonstrated that there was a greater likelihood that if I'm participating in these things or if I feel my acumen is strong, then it's also reflected in my optimism around my farm's financial situation.
Yeah, and we're talking about those things in a relative sense. There is still a lot of opportunity for medium-sized farms and even smaller-sized farms as well, as people try to diversify in different ways, right? A growth mindset or diversifying the farm isn't always just about scale and size. It could be about maybe doing, I met a farmer on Saturday he's a lamb producer, and he's doing direct-to-consumer lamb marketing into Calgary, right? So that's a totally different diversification where probably his size, being a smaller farmer, is a bit of an advantage.
I would agree. If you take out maybe some of the cost barriers of adopting new technology, I think there's an argument to be made that some medium-sized farms are in a better position to change up production practices, for instance, right? So, I think that there's opportunities to look at creating efficiencies that can result in increased profitability. It's not just about growing in size or growing more, for that matter.
When we compare some of our numbers in Canada, the Canadian Farmer Sentiment Index, with, say, the Purdue CME Ag Barometer, we asked some similar questions. And one of the questions where, in both countries, it's not very positive, is this a good time to invest in infrastructure or make capital investments? And the question is a good time. But it doesn't mean that farmers aren't doing it. A lot of farmers looking, when it comes to cost cutting and interest rates coming down, there's kind of a good news, bad news sandwich there in terms of what we're seeing in terms of, is this a good time to be doing this?
Mm-hmm. And so we have seen a little difference between the U.S. and Canada on that question. Going back to some of the demographics, though, we've seen that farms that are larger also seem to be more positive on the making farm investment side. Yeah. We've also seen younger farms are too, and I think that that's encouraging. A younger farmer willing to invest in the farm, even if they're small now, demonstrates, optimism towards the future, and I'm preparing myself for that future.
And I think it's also, it's just age, right? So a younger farm may feel now's a good time because they got a long runway, right? They've got a whole career in front of them. If I'm a 30-year-old farmer, man, I could have 50 crops in front of me based on some of the age demographics of farming today. So that makes more sense in terms of paying off that debt than if I'm, say, 65 and thinking, I'm like, maybe I got 5 more crops in me, or maybe I have 1 more crop in me.
Yeah, and one thing that we don't look at in the CFSI is whether the farms that answer the question are multi-generational or not, because that would be another variable that might influence how somebody answers that question. So separate the farm from the person. If I'm 65 and over, I might be less likely to want to make those investments, but there might be somebody else on the farm who is.
Yeah. Okay, so what are you speaking about here today?
I'm talking about the retailer relationship, and in particular, looking at some of the things that industry salespeople need to be paying attention to as they look at ways to manage relationships and create value for farmers.
Well, you tie those two things together. When we have a situation where in the cropping sector, for sure, margins are tight. Depending on your farm situation, it could be negative. Maybe you made a slight profit last year because we did see some good yields in different parts of Canada. It's a challenging time here for ag retails to, if I said relevant, that feels too harsh. That's not exactly what I mean, but to make sure that they're in tune with what the customer needs.
Yeah, I think it's harder to demonstrate value when margins are tight, and margins are tight across the board. And, one thing I would like the audience here to consider is that there's a lot of turnover that's happening on farm, but there's also a lot of turnover that's happening in the industry where we're seeing a lot of younger sales reps coming in. And, here we've got, let's say, a 22-year-old sales agronomist. It's her first job. She's being put into this position now of going and demonstrating value, and she hasn't necessarily had a chance to prove it yet. I think we need to give these people a chance, and I think we need to understand that value does go beyond just product performance and price. There's other things that I think a lot of value that a retailer can bring to the table that adds value, and consider if it wasn't present, what sort of situation would we be in? We'd be left to do a lot of these things on our own.
Yeah, you've been in the sales coaching and sales training arena. You and your father for a long time. As the farmers, yesterday we had Rabobank on the show, and I asked them, okay, is what the farmer wants out of a bank, has that changed? And we had a good discussion about it. Has what the farmer wants out of a retailer, has it changed over your career?
Absolutely. You just take a look at the environment that we're in, where we have a lot more access to information that we didn't have before. Farmers are more educated than they used to be. They may have the same degree as that crop consultant sitting across the kitchen table from them. I think now that the role of the retailer is much less about bringing the information to the table, it's more about helping to understand and interpret that information with the objective of helping the farm achieve some of those goals. And every farm's goals are going to be different and unique. And so I think, the relationship piece now becomes more focused on, well, I'm not just your friend. And I think that traditionally that has been a major component of the ag salesperson-farmer relationship. It's now more, I'm a trusted advisor to your business. No different than, let's say, a financial advisor or an accountant or a lawyer.
And like anything, it takes a long time to earn the trust, but, can be gone very quickly.
Absolutely. And that's sort of one of the dilemmas we're in right now, where you see a lot of younger salespeople coming into the industry. It takes time to get to where we need to be. And so one of my messages today to leadership of ag retail is to do a good job of coaching and mentoring these people, not just to turn them loose with keys and a customer list, but to take time and nurture them and, set them up for success. And as a result, help set up the farm for success too.
Well, you mentioned the turnover, and that could be because, hey, I found a different job, or maybe this career isn't for me, or hey, there's an opportunity for me to advance in another company. But there also can be in some of the larger retail situations, or with some of the crop protection companies, where the push for advancement. Well, hey, you've been doing this for 3 years. It's time to do something different, and the pressure to do that also kind of like, just as you're getting to that trust point, you can do something else.
Yep. Sales can be a very rewarding career, especially if you're a people person, right? Because you get to interact with people. You're in the field every single day. I understand the pressure to move people up into positions, especially if they're good at what they're doing now. But, I encourage people, if you like sales, if you like people, even if you've never even thought of being a salesperson, there's probably a lot of opportunity for you in the agriculture industry.
No doubt. So I'm looking forward to you talking to some of the group here today about some of the things that we've been finding in our research, including that farm vision study that we did here earlier this year. So if anybody's interested in that, please contact me and we can chat about it. So it's pretty interesting stuff, and the farmer continues to evolve, and so the channel, the retail, anybody that's trying to do business with the farmer needs to adjust as well. Justin, good luck today on the stage at the CARE convention.
You too, Sean. Thanks a lot.
Okay, we've got more coming up here with CANTERRA Seeds. Make sure you go to CANTERRA.com. We'll be back right after this. And welcome back for this product spotlight with Syngenta Canada. Our guest is Wayne Bennett, product marketing manager. He's here to talk about what you get in the box when you buy your crop protection inputs.
Not only are we focused on bringing new technology, but a big part of our focus behind the scenes is about how do we maintain that existing technology. And our team of scientists behind the scenes is continually updating that level of science to ensure that we have freedom to operate and market access.
Wayne, that's an interesting point, because I think a lot of farmers, people in the industry, just assume like product XYZ is approved in Canada, farmers are using it, and that's just the way it stays. But that's not the case. How often does this review come up?
Essentially every 15 years. However, there could be some science that happens in other parts of the world that will trigger a special review here locally. A review can happen at any given time, but a cyclical review happens every 15 years.
Highly encourage all of our audience out there to, when you walk into your local retail, to make sure you're asking about Syngenta product.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today.
And welcome back to RealAg Radio. It's now time for a product spotlight with CANTERRA Seeds. We're joined right now by Duane Briand, who is the North Central Alberta Territory Manager for CANTERRA. Hey, Duane, it's great to chat with you.
Hi, Sean.
So, Duane, there's lots happening in the company at CANTERRA and with your customers. And, of course, we finished harvest. Now we're moving into planning for 2026. You've really had a big year with your canola lineup, especially with this new CS 4100 LL Liberty Link hybrid. What's been standing out about that one in particular?
Well, CS 4100 has, first of all, been tested in farmer trials across Western Canada in every territory. And we're over 100 trials this year. And with regards to North Central Alberta specifically, I had 15 trials myself, all done with different farmers. And it, right from the beginning, it was fast out of the ground, had lots of vigor, covers the ground with nice leaf like guys like to see, and then gets up there and gets to flower before the competitors. And that was very consistent across all of our trials. Yeah.
Cool. It's great to see when you've got a hybrid that you're excited about as a company and a rep, and then when you see the customers' excitement about it as well, that's where it's really, really gratifying. And speaking of customers being excited about a product, here's one of your customers who's been growing CANTERRA seeds for a few seasons now and had CS 4100 LL in the ground this past year. Here's what Michael from Two Hills had to say.
We've been growing CANTERRA seeds for 4 or 5 years now. We started with 2600 as a Roundup variety, and then we switched over to the Liberty Link when CS 4000 came out. And haven't really looked back. We went from one field to a solid half of the farm and into CANTERRA seeds, and definitely room to expand that in the future if the 4100 performs as good as it looks.
Duane, that's pretty cool to hear from a customer like that.
It really is. It was nice to see 4100 how it went straight cut through the combine. Where the yield monitor was hitting very high numbers, and the customer's excited about the variety and getting some on their farm for next year as well in 2026, right? So they're very happy. We're very happy. We had a trial, and many of the trials that we had, but the one specifically closest to them at Two Hills, we were the highest yielder in that trial. And again, 4100 is a very high yielder. and has done very well across all of our trials in terms of how it finished with yield too. So, yeah.
Okay, so now in addition to 4100, that Liberty Link hybrid, what do you have for those that are looking for options that are TrueFlex?
Well, we have our brand new CS 3400. It definitely has been something I've been waiting for in North Central Alberta because we have a very big clubroot issue, as most people know. One thing that this variety brings is brand new clubroot resistance package to it. It brings that mid to early maturity, and of course, it has a really nice high yield potential, and it really can do well for the farmers out there. And of course, it is its first year out there, so it's going to be a limited launch as well. So if
you're interested, book early, right? That's the message. That's the takeaway.
Book early. Exactly. Give it a try. Give it a try against any of your TrueFlex or any Roundup ready products that you grow on your farm. Give it a try. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, great stuff. Okay, so we've talked a lot about product performance, and you've mentioned the trial success that you've seen in your territory. As you look ahead, what do you think defines CANTERRA Seeds as a company? And you know, you've been with the company for a while now, right? So you got a good base there. How does the company continue to deliver this to farmers across the prairies?
Well, the nice thing about CANTERRA Seeds is it's a small Western Canadian company. It focuses on farmers. It's a farmer-owned company, and we focus on what the farmers need. We use the retail locations that help us by selling our products to help the farmers as well. And of course, if there's something specific a farmer needs that some companies can't provide, well, CANTERRA Seeds actually can provide that with some of the services we offer, and as well, CANTERRA Seeds definitely is always looking for something new, and we deal with several breeding companies on the canola and of course on the rest of our portfolio side of a business. And we can definitely provide a lot of great opportunities for farmers to do well on their farm. Yeah.
Great stuff. So if somebody wants more information about CANTERRA Seeds, Duane, where do they go and what do they do?
Well, the best place to start is you can go to your local retailer who sells CANTERRA Seeds, or you can go and online to canterra.com, and you can look up your local rep and give us a call directly. As well, you can also find your local retail online as well.
Great stuff. Hey, Duane, thanks so much for joining us here for this product spotlight.
Thank you.
Awesome stuff. Again, talk to your local CANTERRA retailer, talk to your local CANTERRA rep, and make sure you ask them about some of those new products, especially that CS 4100 LL. We're back on RealAg Radio right after this. And welcome back to RealAg Radio here with Acadian Plant Health. We have Andreas Reyes-Gage, Regional Technical Manager, also responsible for business development in Canada, Loren Davis. What is Acadian Plant Health?
We harvest seaweed out of the Atlantic Ocean. We create a product that farmers can apply either as a seed treatment or foliar on their crops to help deal with crop stresses, abiotic stress, and help that plant be healthier.
What's the one piece of advice that you give to the Real Agriculture audience that is interested in trying out a biostimulant?
It is very important to remember that not all biostimulant products are the same, and not all of them are going to be doing the same thing. So you need to choose carefully about exactly what you want from this product.
Loren, what would your advice be?
I think biostimulants, they're a great fit. They do have an opportunity in broadacre crops. They're not a silver bullet. They're not going to replace your fertilizer or your fungicide or your herbicides, but they can be integrated to be a nice addition.
You go to acadianplanthealth-na.com. And welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147. We are in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, at the CARE Convention. And today's show is brought to you by CANTERRA Seeds. Listen, they've got a lot of growers across Western Canada been trying this new CS 4100 LL CANTERRA Seeds new Liberty Link hybrid with pod shatter tolerance. Want to give a big shout out to Derek Derry, whose his company, or his farm, I should say, is 16 Grains outside of Saskatoon here in the city. And he's been a CANTERRA customer since 2022. So big shout out to Derek. Joined right now by the opening speaker going to launch this sucker off and blow the roof off. It is Vance Crowe. Vance, it is great to chat with you.
Yeah, great to be here.
So you're doing some cool stuff from a communication standpoint. Before we get into some of the communication stuff you're going to talk about with the group here of Ag Retails, what are you doing now?
Well, I used to be the director of millennial engagement, for Monsanto. So that means all those people that had strong feelings about GMOs and pesticides, it was my job to go talk to them. Now I do something totally different. Now I sit down with usually grandparents to record their life stories so that they can pass it down to their grandchildren. And so I have a studio. People come and visit me for a day, and we sit down and capture all those stories that made up their life.
I've seen some of them. They are, I think it's really cool. I wish I would have done that with my grandparents, where, some of the stories, the perspectives, and you remember it, but at the time you think, your relationship with them is going to last forever. And it does last forever in your mind, but to actually have that visual and hear their voice, I think it's what a rewarding thing to do for people.
It's been a wonderful experience. And one of the things we always like to capture is even more than the stories. It's mom and dad sitting on a couch and dad tells a story and mom rolls her eyes but laughs, like that dynamic that you could never really tell your kids about. You just couldn't do it. But having it there on screen, hearing their voices, it's a really powerful medium.
Okay, so before we get to what you're going to talk about, you just sparked something in me in terms of that millennial engagement. How old are millennials now?
Well, much older now. So it used to be that they were, 81 to like 95, something like that. So they're all having kids or not having kids. I just read a statistic today that 1/3 of millennials will not get married. And so we're living in a totally different world, but all those millennials that were young, up and coming, they're adults now.
Yeah. I guess if you look back on that experience of having those engagements, some of them I'm sure very friendly, and some of them were a little bit adversarial, being thrown a bit of the hornet's nest, because that was your job to do that and try to educate people, or at least have conversation. Maybe educate seems one way. Have conversations about some of the things that the agricultural sector was doing. If you could go back and do that now, what would you, if you had like a review meeting, like a rebuttal meeting, got some of those people back, do you think the mood has changed at all?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, a big part of that is the activists went away. The money that was pointed towards GMOs went towards glyphosate. Then they won some lawsuits, and now they're not pushing on it. So a big part of it is just the attention isn't there. But I also think people came to terms with it. IVF and doing all sorts of things for themselves opened up their eyes to there's a much bigger picture here. And I think the world moved on. Trump took up a lot of the oxygen in the room, and there's just not as much activism in those spaces as there used to be.
Yeah, makes sense. So what's your message to the group of ag retailers here today?
Well, one of the things that I learned when I was doing the work as director of millennial engagement is that the reason people get so upset, the reason they get so angry is not because you don't have the right answer for them. It's that they don't feel heard. People, when they really feel passionate, but they have a very small amount of information about something, they will compensate for that. They won't tell themselves, I don't know very much, I'm going to go ask insightful questions. What they tell themselves is, I need to speak louder so that these people hear me. And what I'm going to be talking about with this group is, actually, that's the core of leadership. I believe that most people go most of their lives never having anybody really listen to them. And listening is truly a skill. It's something that you can develop and help people to say, I feel really heard here. I feel understood. And once somebody feels understood, they are way more open to hearing what you have to say.
Oh, you just reminded me of a conversation I had with my wife on the weekend where she was like, are you listening to me? Oh, yeah. What did I say? I have no idea.
Exactly. And I mean, we get into these things, particularly with our family members, where how can you communicate, I'm listening, and make them feel heard? Because I would say 90% of the conflict in my house is really about not feeling heard as opposed to us actually being in conflict.
Yeah, and it isn't what's driving a lot of that in today's world too, even when you're one-on-one, is people are distracted. They're this idea that they can multitask. They can be sending, posts on X and checking a text group and having a conversation at the same time. It not being present, I think, is what my point is. Is that a big factor here?
Oh, that's exactly what I'm going to talk about today. I now, because I've done hundreds of these legacy interviews where somebody walks in, they're a complete stranger, and you have to get them comfortable enough to tell you about not just the ups of life where they were successful, but the downs of life. And what I've come to realize is that if I can be really present with a person, I'm not trying to grab on to the next best question. I'm not trying to think about how can I shape or where should I take this, but I'm actually just listening to them, then everything flows from that. And so I view conversation truly as meditation. How can I be present as opposed to grabbing on to thoughts?
So, like, truly meditating.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I am here in this present moment. There is nothing else going on. I have nothing that's trying to pull my attention in any other direction, including I'm not trying to drive this conversation somewhere. And I know if you're doing sales, you think, well, I'm trying to get the sale. I'm trying to get engaged with this person. It will always work out if you just listen to the person. But it's really hard to do, and it requires you to trust yourself that you don't have to hold on to what's the next thing I'm going to say to what they're talking about.
You know, I have run this by a few people, and they've looked, to be honest with you, they've looked at me like, you're crazy. I heard Gary Vee on a reel say he thinks one of the big trends we're going to see in 26 is, and I can't remember what he exactly called it, but the practice is where restaurants won't let you have a phone at the table. Where you will get together like to go on a hike with a hiking group. No phones allowed, no earpieces in, like trying to really force the idea of presence. And people are like, oh, that would suck. I actually think it's kind of neat. My wife and I used to do this technique when the kids were little, is we would have get the whole, hey, kids, let's go have a hot tub. Because they couldn't bring their phones in the hot tub, right? You had them, right? And so I think there's a big opportunity there.
Well, I mean, you see that in legacy interviews. I can hand off my phone and nobody can interrupt me. So having that space without a phone allows you to not be distracted. I know in a group of friends that I meet with every Thursday night, we have about an hour and a half during that time where we all agree we're setting our phones away. Our spouses know we're not going to be able to be reached. And it's got a profound impact on how present you are in the conversation.
Yeah, and it's funny how that obviously works in your life relationships, friends, spouse, but it also has a fit in the workplace. And being a good communicator in the workplace is not only probably good for your career, but it's also good for business with your customers.
Absolutely. I mean, if somebody takes a phone call in the middle of a conversation with you, you know where you fit on their priority. You are not as high as whatever else is on that phone. And but if you can really let that go, even if you're a leader that has all kinds of demands on your time, when you're spending time with a person, completely be there. It will transform the way people communicate with you.
Well, you were just sitting down with my research partner, Justin Funk, and some of the things that we have found from salesperson characteristics and behaviors and what the expectation is of them. Some of the fixes are really... They're self-inflicted problems, like, not being on time, not listening, not hearing me out, not wanting to deal with problems. Those are things that we can deal with as salespeople.
Yeah, one of the things that I always talk about is if you disagree with somebody before they feel like you understand them, you will not go anywhere. So the first technique is to make sure that if somebody is disagreeing with you, they're upset with you, that you communicate as clearly as you can to them that you understand where they're coming from. We call it steel manning, right? I'm going to take whatever you have said and I'm going to repeat it back for you and I'm going to give the best interpretation I possibly can. And I'm not going to disagree with you until you agree that I understand what you're saying. Once that happens, the grip that somebody has on whatever their disagreement is loosens, and it makes the whole situation flow much easier.
Feels like this becomes a bigger challenge as we get caught in our own little echo chambers and people not hanging out with people with other ideas. I know I've always loved chatting with you because it doesn't matter what you think or what I think. It's just like, tell me more.
So, that is a phrase that is incredibly powerful because most of the time somebody says something and the other person is just waiting to respond.
And lashes.
And if you instead just say, oh, that's interesting, tell me more about that, people will be taken back by that because they don't often get an opportunity. And if you want to know if somebody has more to say, notice, particularly among men, when you're in a group of men and you're telling jokes and stuff, particularly when you're younger, if somebody takes even a breath, somebody jumps in to say something, right? So we come up with all these tricks to hold the space. We say, because we don't want somebody to jump in on us. So if you ever notice if somebody's talking to you and they're saying, and it means that you need to make sure they feel that they have all the time in the world. And once somebody feels like they have time, they will relax a great deal.
Great advice. Vance, it is great to see you again. If somebody wants to maybe chat with you about these interviews these legacy interviews that you're doing, how do they find you?
They find me at legacyinterviews.com, or if you want to take a class that I've built on these communication skills, I teach called Interest-Based Communications.
Awesome stuff. That is Vance Crowe. It is great to see him, and looking forward to hearing his opening keynote here at the CARE Convention in Saskatoon. We'll be back with more of RealAg Radio. We've got Brent Derkatch, CEO of CANTERRA, with us right after this. Built on over 100 years of seed innovation and unwavering commitment to farmers, Pioneer 100 Series canola hybrids deliver a step change in yield performance and agronomic traits. This isn't just better canola, it's different canola. Pioneer 100 Series. Contact your local Pioneer sales representative or visit pioneer.com/100 series to learn more today.
I'm Lindsay Smith, host of The Agronomist, and I want to thank you for tuning in for over 200 episodes of our beloved little program. Join me Monday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube for our live and interactive agronomy Q&A. Each week, our guest panel will handle some of your toughest agronomic questions live, streaming on YouTube, Facebook, X, and RealAgriculture.com. Tune in Monday nights or go to RealAgriculture.com/agronomist and sign up for our email notifications and don't miss an episode.
And welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147 Sirius XM. Today's show is brought to you by CANTERRA Seeds. Hey, let's say a big shout out to Chad Halleck, who farms in Lomond, Alberta. He's been a CANTERRA grower since 2021, and he's also a grower that has also had CS 4100 LL, CANTERRA Seeds' new Liberty Link canola hybrid with pod shatter tolerance in the field. Having some success with it. Joining us right now to finish up today's show is the CEO of CANTERRA Seeds. It is Brent Derkatch. How's it going, Brent?
It's going great, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to chat with you. This is we're piecing this all together. We're having a lot of fun at the CARE Convention here in Saskatoon, but I think it's well timed because Justin Funk and I were talking earlier about the changing needs of the farmer relative to what they want out of a retailer and a supplier. And the retailer is an incredibly important component of the supply chain.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as a seed distribution company, we work very closely. I mean, seed retailers are our partners and farmers are our customers ultimately, but together we have to work closely with the retail. And time again, farmers do tell us that it's the retail's recommendations that ultimately mean the most when they're making their important decisions on the farm.
Yeah, has what a retailer wants out of a seed company, has that evolved over time? We were talking about how the farmer's needs have evolved. Has what a retailer wants out of a seed company, has that changed?
I think so. I think that's been one of our great opportunities and competitive advantages at CANTERRA Seeds is I'll call it the customer intimacy piece of the relationship. So there's been a lot of consolidation broadly in the seed industry. And for us, we've found ourselves elevating in how we provide, relevant transactional data, more regional and sub-regional marketing communication support. And all of that's quite meaningful to the retail. And ultimately, the information has to get to the farmer.
Now, we heard earlier from one of your sales reps, Duane, we heard about his excitement around this CS 4100. There's a lot of your quick elevator pitch here, exciting stuff happening at CANTERRA when it comes to the genetic lineup.
Yeah, well, we've been working closely with a couple of key breeders and licensing some key hybrids. The Liberty Link space is by far the largest market space. CS 4100 sort of checks all the boxes. It has had broad adaptability. It has pod shatter tolerance. It has excellent yield potential. The crop in Western Canada was actually a big crop, and so this year it really allowed the genetics that were at the top of the pack to really shine.
Justin and I were talking about some of the data we've been getting from our Canadian Farmer Sentiment Index, where there's concern about farm profitability. And, depending on who I'm talking to in the audience, where they are in Western Canada, I didn't make money. I maybe made a little because my canola yield was way beyond what I thought it was. I had budgeted. So I yielded myself to profit. That's no guarantee in 26. There's a lot that's not guaranteed in 26. How does that impact go-to-market strategy and what the offering or the value proposition is to farmers from a seed company?
Well, often I feel the important part is to not put all your eggs in one basket. And so as much as we do have a flagship product like CS4100, we also have a lot of bench strength in our portfolio. And so because you can't predict that weather, it's important farmers choose, variety hybrids that have different maturity rates. Maybe you're going to grow some TrueFlex hybrids and Liberty Link hybrids because you have some weeds that you need to deal with. So, that's a big part of our approach. And of course, we're not just a canola seed company. Cereals, pulses, and special crops are a big part of our business as well.
What's going on in the cereal space? Exciting stuff or causes for concern? We're in the winter meeting season. Yeah. So what can we expect to hear about through this next 3-4 months?
Yeah. So 2 things from CANTERRA Seeds perspective. We acquired Alliance Seed back at the beginning of May. And so we're focusing now on that broader portfolio and helping support 2 brands in the marketplace, both the CANTERRA Seeds products and the Alliance Seed products. And in addition, we're advocating for more variety development and plant breeding in Canada, particularly in cereals and pulse crops.
Okay, what are some of the varieties that? Because some growers are gonna be like, okay, CANTERRA has cereal or has cereal or non-canola crop types, but I'm not familiar with what those are. Sure. But there's some names out there that people recognize.
Yeah, so there's 2 in particular that I'll make a shout out to in spring milling wheat in the CWRS category. CS Baker and CS Breadwinner. They're both from our joint venture wheat breeding program with Lima Grain Cereals Research Canada breeding program. And so 2026 is really the first season that farmers will be able to access certified seed of those 2 hybrids. And so that breeding or hybrid, those spring wheat varieties, and those products are the result of the crosses that were made 10 years ago when we started that breeding program.
Really, it takes that. It still takes that. We haven't sped that up at all.
It's slow and go. It's the science, research, and breeding part of it, and then it's just the biology of doing the seed increase. And so we've been doing some things to shorten that timeline. I mean, it can be as long as 12 years, or maybe even longer in some cases. So 10 is actually somewhat of a win.
Why is it so long? Like to me, in today's world, you just think about the things that are happening from just a tech perspective in 6 months now with artificial intelligence and all those kinds of things. It still takes us 10 years to bring a variety to market. That just seems just from something from the 90s.
It does feel that way, and I think that's also, Sean, part of the challenge that we have in the industry when we're talking about and advocating for change in this sector. It's that changes we decide to make today on how we're going to both fund and support variety development, the outcomes of that can be very long into the future. I know Lima Grain is one of the largest seed companies globally, and they have definitely adopted increased levels of technology from breeding perspective to continue to whittle away at that timeline, and they're very keen to continue to bring that technology to Canada.
Now we know that there's the canola model, as a lot of the audience would say, is one way of doing things. Are you optimistic about what's going on in the cereal sector, for example? Pessimistic? Obviously, you're optimistic because you just made an acquisition. So yeah. Maybe that's a dumb question.
No, it's not. It's not a dumb question in large part because we've had so much headwinds in this space for such a long period of time. But if we just turn the clock back to a couple of weeks ago with the most recent announcement of the federal budget included in that, and you've been talking about this a lot on your show. Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada is not going to continue to get the same level of resources to support public breeding within that, within the AAFC. So the question is how are we going to continue to invest in this space? I'm here to say that the private industry is very much here to help. And so we've literally put our skin in the game with Lima Grain to provide incremental investment in variety development. And we're advocating for others to join along.
We can have both, though, can't we? Right?
Absolutely. We can have both. And I think that's the other thing is that there might be a misconception that private industry is actually advocating for public to get out of the way entirely. But we know that there is a lot of foundational research that's necessary in any crop type. I mean, there's actually still foundational research being done in canola, for example, at AAFC. Not many people talk about that, but it's important as a foundation for the private breeders that are involved. And so I see that being, critically important to the future of cereals and pulses as well.
One of the things that we talked about on the Top Ag News of the day yesterday on the bonus segment of RealAg Radio was a report the Globe and Mail was talking about. Now, this wasn't just agriculture. This is all research. How Canada is lagging. We are in decline when it comes to what dollars we are committing to research. I think there's an ag component to that too, as a part of the story. I think farmers should be concerned about that.
I agree completely. I mean, as much as it might feel with a recency bias, we just harvested in many areas a record crop in Western Canada, where our business operates. When we look globally, we really have to assess our competitiveness. And so, if we're going to do things in a very big way in the future, we have to make sure that investment and research is happening in Canada, and we are competing for those dollars globally.
Did you go to the Grey Cup?
I didn't go to the Grey Cup. No, my Winnipeg Blue Bombers didn't perform as they needed to this year. There was a lot of buzz around Winnipeg, I must say, though. So it was great to see so many football fans. Yes, kudos to the Riders for winning.
Yeah.
That's hard for me to say. That's hard for me to say, Sean. But I have a lot of friends in Saskatchewan. I have a lot of friends that are Rider fans, and honestly, they deserve it this year.
Yeah, it was. I actually watched the game. It was a lot of fun. Was it cold in Winnipeg that day? Because Machine Gun Kelly had talked about how it was kind of like. It was chilly, but they were still going to go ahead. Was it actually cold?
It was chilly, but it was for Winnipeggers, it was an exceptional day. I think it was around zero at kickoff, maybe -2, getting into the second half. And so when you're in the middle of November in Winnipeg, you'll take it.
Well, I think the last Grey Cup that I was at is I think we were in the same party of people that went to the game, and it was in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
In the old stadium.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, there was a real problem, and it wasn't on the field. The problem was they ran out of beer. I remember, right? Am I remembering this correctly?
I think you're right. Yeah. I can't say whether we had an influence on that or not, but
we might. I judging by some of the characters that we were with that weekend, likely our group had an impact on that. Hey, Brent, I really appreciate CANTERRA being today's show sponsor. And I grabbed you out of the breakfast session here at the CARE convention. Enjoy the convention. I know this is an important stakeholder group for CANTERRA Seeds. And good luck with some of the hybrids like CS4100 LL and the other things in the portfolio.
Yeah, thanks again, Sean. And yes, a big shout out to all of our retail partners, both here at the convention and across Western Canada. Our motto is grow connection one field at a time, and we're also going to be sponsoring a new award here at the CARE convention, the Growing Connection Award. And so I'll be honored to present that inaugural award later tonight at the gala.
So what are the qualifications? Who gets that? What is? You don't need to tell me who wins. Just like what are you honoring?
It's ultimately about those that give back to their community in the most meaningful of ways. So a lot of local fundraising initiatives and other volunteering time that they present into their communities. That's somewhat of the roots of foundation of CANTERRA Seeds as well. So it resonates well with our brand and what we represent in Western Canada.
It's tough to choose because a lot of ag retailers do a lot of community outreach because they're a part of the community. So that is not easy.
It's not easy, but that's a good problem to have when you have to select from a really long list of qualified people.
Okay, great stuff. Hey, listen, everybody, if you have any feedback on today's show, some questions, comments, theories, rants, you want to provide your perspective, I want to hear from you. Send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also call or text the Real Ag feedback line, 855-776-6147. Thanks to CANTERRA Seeds for being today's show sponsor. Make sure you go to CANTERRA.com, and congratulations to all of their very loyal and supportive customers across Western Canada who we've been mentioning here over the past couple show sponsorships. Thanks, everybody, for getting real and getting connected with Real Ag Radio, and we'll chat again tomorrow. Cheers, everybody.